Before we begin the story, let us know where you're watching from by leaving a comment below. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the story, everyone. Manhattan, New York. Olivia Grant was late. Spectacularly late. She hurried through the marble corridors of the Plaza Hotel, clutching her presentation folder while trying not to trip in her navy heels. In exactly 4 minutes, she was due to pitch her marketing strategy to the executives of Sterling Enterprises, the career-defining moment she'd been working toward for 3 years. "Excuse me, sorry," she muttered, weaving between waiters carrying crystal champagne flutes. That's when a firm hand caught her arm. Finally, the voice was deep, confident, with a subtle East Coast inflection. "I was beginning to think you'd changed your mind." Olivia spun around to meet the most striking hazel eyes she'd ever seen. The man before her stood well over 6 feet, his broad frame impeccably tailored in a midnight black tuxedo, and wore the kind of smile that likely opened doors and broke hearts in equal measure. "I think you have the wrong person," Olivia said. "Olivia, isn't it?" He smoothly tucked her arm through his with practiced charm. "Ethan Sterling, your fiancé." The world tilted. "My what?" Several elegant heads turned their way. Ethan's smile deepened as he leaned close enough for her to catch his cologne, something expensive and dangerously appealing. "Steady there, sweetheart. We wouldn't want Manhattan's finest to discover our engagement is strictly contractual, would we?" Olivia's mind raced. Contractual engagement, arranged marriage, and she'd just been mistaken for the intended bride of one of New York's most influential business moguls. "Hold on just 1 minute. There they are." A sophisticated woman in her early 60s approached, radiating warmth. "Ethan, darling, she's absolutely stunning, even lovelier than the portfolio photographs. Olivia, I'm Eleanor Sterling, your future mother-in-law. We're thrilled to welcome you into our family." Olivia's jaw dropped, then snapped shut, then dropped again. Ethan gently squeezed her elbow, his eyes dancing with mischief and something deeper she couldn't quite decipher. "Mother, we were just becoming better acquainted." "Perfect. The reception begins in 20 minutes. Olivia, sweet girl, you absolutely must meet everyone. Ethan, don't you dare let this treasure slip away." Eleanor beamed and floated toward other distinguished guests. Olivia finally recovered her voice. "Okay, time out. I am definitely not Olivia Grant, marketing strategist, 26 years old, Northwestern graduate, specializing in brand revitalization." Ethan's tone was smooth as aged whiskey. "Originally from Chicago, relocated to New York 3 years ago, currently residing in a charming but overpriced apartment in the Village that's smaller than most people's closets." Her blood chilled. "How could you possibly know all that?" He guided her toward a secluded alcove, his palm barely touching her lower back, yet somehow steering her effortlessly. "Because 30 minutes ago, I was scheduled to meet my intended bride, a woman my mother selected through some exclusive matchmaking service. The problem is," his gaze locked with hers, and she glimpsed something unexpectedly vulnerable beneath his polished exterior. "I've never wanted anything less in my entire existence. So, you're using me as your personal escape route. I'm presenting you with an exceptional opportunity." His voice dropped to an intimate register. "Pretend to be my devoted fiancé for 1 evening. Help me demonstrate to my family how absurd this arranged marriage concept, truly island." In exchange, he produced an elegant business card. "Sterling Enterprises needs a consultant with your exact qualifications, a genuine consulting position, 6-figure salary, complete creative autonomy." Olivia stared at the card. Sterling Enterprises, the identical company she'd been racing to present to, the same opportunity that could catapult her career into the stratosphere. "You're absolutely out of your mind, quite possibly." Ethan's smile was devastating. "But I'm also your most direct path to everything you've been striving to achieve. 1 evening, Olivia, simply 1 night of convincing everyone we're completely smitten. How challenging could that be?" Famous last words, she thought as a server materialized with champagne and the dinner announcement echoed through the ballroom. "All right," she heard herself agree. "But I have conditions. I wouldn't dream of expecting otherwise." Ethan extended his arm with an exaggerated formal gesture. "Shall we go charm the family, darling?" As they moved toward the dining hall, Olivia caught her reflection in a gilded mirror. Her cheeks were flushed pink, her eyes bright with equal parts excitement and panic. She had no idea that within the span of a single evening, this ridiculous masquerade would completely upend her carefully planned life. But Ethan Sterling was about to discover that Olivia Grant wasn't anyone's convenient pretense. And sometimes, the most convincing performances have a troublesome habit of becoming startlingly authentic. The Plaza Hotel. Grand Ballroom. Olivia had attended networking events, board presentations, and high-stakes client dinners, but nothing had prepared her for the Sterling family dinner table. The ballroom buzzed with conversation as Manhattan's elite mingled over crystal glasses and caviar appetizers. Olivia counted at least 3 senators, 2 Supreme Court justices, and a tech billionaire she'd seen on magazine covers. Her stomach twisted into elaborate knots. "Relax," Ethan murmured, his hand settling at the small of her back as they approached their table. "You look like you're about to face a firing squad, aren't you?" "I am," she whispered back, trying to match his confident stride. "Think of it as aggressive networking." Their table seated 12, dominated by Sterling family members who looked like they'd stepped out of a Ralph Lauren catalog. Eleanor Sterling caught sight of them and practically glowed. "Everyone, I'd like you to meet Olivia, Ethan's fiancée." A chorus of warm greetings erupted, but Olivia caught the calculating looks beneath the smiles. These people were assessing her like a potential stock investment. Ethan pulled out her chair, a gesture so natural it sent an unexpected flutter through her chest. "Olivia, meet the family circus. Uncle Henry, our resident federal judge." He indicated a distinguished man with silver temples. "Aunt Margaret, who runs half the charities in New York." An elegant woman with perfectly coiffed blonde hair nodded graciously. "And my dear cousin Sophia, who's never met a trust fund she couldn't spend." Sophia, a stunning redhead about Olivia's age, raised her champagne glass. "Welcome to the madhouse, Olivia. I hope you're tougher than you look." "I'm resilient," Olivia replied, accepting a glass from a passing waiter. "I've survived 3 years in New York marketing. I can handle anything." "Marketing?" Uncle Henry leaned forward with interest. "What kind of campaigns do you work on?" Olivia felt Ethan tense beside her, but she smiled confidently. "Brand revitalization primarily. I help companies rediscover their identity and reconnect with their target demographics." "Fascinating," Aunt Margaret chimed in. "And how did you and Ethan meet? He's been terribly secretive about his love life." The million-dollar question. Olivia's mind went blank for a terrifying moment before Ethan's hand found hers under the table. "Coffee shop," he said smoothly. Olivia was absolutely demolishing some poor client over the phone about their social media strategy. I was intrigued by her passion. "I prefer professional dedication," Olivia shot back, surprised by how naturally the banter flowed. Ethan was eavesdropping like a common stalker. "I was appreciating your expertise from a respectful distance. You sent over a latte with your business card. A gentleman always introduces himself properly." The table laughed, and Olivia felt some of her tension ease. Ethan's thumb brushed across her knuckles, probably part of the act, but it sent warmth racing up her arm. "How romantic!" Eleanor clapped her hands together. "And the proposal, Ethan? Please tell me you did something appropriately grand." Ethan's confident mask slipped for just a second, but Olivia jumped in smoothly. "Oh, it was perfect, completely unexpected." She gazed at him with what she hoped looked like adoration. "Remember that rainy Thursday when I was stressed about the Carter account? You showed up at my office with takeout from that little Thai place I love." Ethan's eyes widened slightly, but he recovered quickly. "You were working late again, 18-hour days for 3 weeks straight. And you said," Olivia paused, letting the moment build, "you said you never wanted to watch me fight battles alone again. That you wanted to be my partner in everything." The women at the table sighed audibly. Eleanor looked close to tears. "He proposed right there in your office?" Sophia asked, leaning forward. "With Thai food containers and legal briefs everywhere," Olivia confirmed, warming to her story. "It was perfectly us. No crowds, no cameras, just us." Ethan finished softly. "Just us." His gaze locked on her face with such intensity she almost forgot they were acting. "That's beautiful," Aunt Margaret murmured. "So refreshing compared to these elaborate social media proposals." The conversation flowed into wedding planning, a minefield Olivia navigated by deflecting to Eleanor's expertise and keeping the details vague. Ethan proved surprisingly good at the supportive fiancé role, jumping in whenever she looked overwhelmed. During the salad course, Sophia leaned over. "Can I steal Olivia for a quick powder room touch-up?" Before Olivia could protest, She found herself whisked away to the ladies' lounge, Sophia's manicured fingers wrapped around her wrist. "Okay, spill," Sophia said the moment they were alone. "What's your angle?" Olivia's blood pressure spiked. "Excuse me? Look, you seem lovely, but Ethan Sterling doesn't do relationships, period. I've known him since we were kids. He's charming, brilliant, and completely allergic to commitment. So, either you've performed some kind of miracle, or this is an elaborate performance." Olivia studied Sophia's face, searching for malice, but finding only genuine concern. "Maybe people can change," she said carefully. Sophia laughed, but not unkindly. "Honey, I've watched a parade of gorgeous, accomplished women try to crack that man's code. They all thought they were different. They all got their hearts broken." Her expression softened. "I like you. Don't let him destroy you for whatever game he's playing." Olivia's chest tightened. She'd agreed to one evening of pretense, but Sophia's warning hit uncomfortably close to home. Already, she was finding Ethan's smile too appealing, his protective gestures too convincing. "Thanks for the advice," she managed. When they returned to the table, Ethan stood immediately, his hand finding the small of her back again. "Everything all right?" "Perfect," Sophia answered sweetly. "Just girl talk." But Olivia caught the meaningful look that passed between the cousins, and she realized the evening had just become infinitely more complicated. As dessert was served, and conversation turned to business acquisitions, Ethan leaned close to her ear. "You're incredible at this," he whispered. "That proposal story was genius." His breath against her neck sent shivers down her spine. "I'm a good improviser. I'm beginning to realize there's a lot more to Olivia Grant than meets the eye." She turned to face him, acutely aware that they were sitting close enough that she could see gold flecks in his hazel eyes. "Same to you, Ethan Sterling." For a moment, the ballroom full of people faded away, and all she could focus on was the man beside her. The one who was supposed to be fake, but was starting to feel dangerously real. That's when the evening took an unexpected turn. "Ethan, darling," a sultry voice called from across the ballroom. "I heard congratulations were in order." Olivia looked up to see a statuesque blonde in a stunning red dress approaching their table, her smile sharp as a blade. Ethan's entire body tensed beside her. "Camille," he said quietly. "What a surprise." Eleanor Sterling's face had gone pale. "Camille Laurent. I didn't know you were in town." Olivia didn't need an introduction to recognize the predatory gleam in Camille's eyes, or the way Ethan's jaw had gone rigid. This was about to get very interesting. The Plaza Hotel Grand Ballroom. Camille Laurent moved through the ballroom like a predator who'd just spotted wounded prey. Olivia had seen her type before, the kind of woman who wore designer gowns like armor and wielded charm like a perfectly sharpened blade. "Ethan, you look absolutely divine," Camille purred air, kissing both his cheeks while her calculating blue eyes assessed Olivia. "And this must be the mysterious fiancé I've been hearing whispers about." Olivia felt Ethan's muscles coil with tension, but his smile remained perfectly composed. "Camille, I'd like you to meet Olivia Grant." "Olivia, this is Camille Laurent, an old friend." The pause before friend spoke volumes. Enchanted, Camille extended a perfectly manicured hand, her grip just a fraction too firm. "Though I must say, Ethan, you certainly kept this romance under wraps. When did all this happen?" "It feels like just yesterday we were—" "That was a long time ago," Ethan interrupted smoothly, his arm sliding protectively around Olivia's waist. Olivia watched the interaction with professional fascination. This was corporate warfare disguised as polite conversation, and Camille was clearly the type who played for keeps. "Oh, but time moves so strangely, doesn't it?" Camille's laugh was crystalline and sharp. "Some moments feel like yesterday, others like lifetimes." "Olivia, dear, how long have you two been together?" The question was loaded with subtext Olivia couldn't quite decode, but she sensed dangerous waters ahead. 8 months, she answered confidently, settling on a time frame that felt substantial, but not too specific. 8 whole months. Camille's eyebrows arched with theatrical surprise. "My, that's practically a record for our Ethan. He's never been one for consistency in his romantic endeavors." Eleanor Sterling cleared her throat pointedly. "Camille, perhaps you'd like to join us for coffee. I'm sure you have fascinating stories from your time in Paris." "Actually, I was hoping to steal Ethan for a quick dance," Camille replied, her smile never wavering. "For old time's sake. You don't mind, do you, Olivia? I promise to return him in one piece." Olivia felt every eye at the table turn toward her. This was clearly a test. Refuse, and she'd look insecure and possessive. Agree, and she'd be handing Ethan over to a woman who obviously had history with him. She chose option 3. Of course not, Olivia said brightly, standing gracefully. But only if you don't mind sharing. I'd love to see Ethan's famous dance moves myself. Ethan's eyes widened slightly. Clearly, this wasn't part of anyone's script. I didn't know you danced, darling, he said carefully. There's still so much we're discovering about each other, Olivia replied, placing her hand on his chest with what she hoped looked like intimate familiarity. Isn't that the best part of being engaged? All those wonderful surprises. She felt his heartbeat accelerate beneath her palm, and something electric passed between them. Camille's smile faltered for just a moment before snapping back into place. How modern. I suppose 3 is company after all. The small orchestra had begun a slow waltz, and couples were moving onto the dance floor. Ethan offered Olivia his arm with a look that was part admiration, part panic. Shall we, ladies? On the dance floor, the dynamics became even more complex. Ethan was clearly an accomplished dancer, leading Olivia through the steps with easy confidence, while Camille positioned herself strategically nearby, occasionally cutting in with practiced maneuvers. You're full of surprises, Ethan murmured as he spun Olivia gracefully, her navy dress flaring around her legs. I took lessons as a kid, she admitted, surprised by how natural it felt to be in his arms. My mother insisted on proper etiquette training. Thank goodness for proper mothers, he said, pulling her closer as Camille attempted another intrusion. You're handling this beautifully. She's your ex, isn't she? Ethan's step faltered almost imperceptibly. What gave it away? The way she's circling us like a shark. And the fact that your entire family looks like they're watching a potential natural disaster unfold. Camille and I dated for 2 years. Ended badly about 8 months ago. Olivia's pulse quickened. 8 months. Exactly the time frame she'd given for their fake relationship. What kind of badly? The kind where she assumed an expensive engagement ring was forthcoming, and I realized I'd rather undergo root canal surgery than spend my life with her. Ouch. She didn't take it well. Made some rather public scenes. Said some things to the press about my commitment issues and emotional unavailability. Ethan guided Olivia through a complex turn sequence, his hand warm and steady at her waist. My mother has been in damage control mode ever since, hence the arranged marriage campaign. Suddenly, the evening made perfect sense. So when I walked into this ballroom tonight, you were literally an answer to my prayers, a way to prove I'm capable of a healthy relationship while avoiding whatever social climbing debutante mother had selected. The music swelled, and Ethan lifted Olivia slightly during a dramatic dip. For a moment, suspended in his arms with his face inches from hers, she forgot entirely that this was pretense. You're really good at this, she whispered. The dancing or the fake relationship? Both. When he pulled her back up, his eyes had darkened to deep amber. So are you, darling. Camille's voice cut through the moment like glass. Surely you won't monopolize your lovely fiancé all evening. Other gentlemen are simply dying for a chance to dance with such a beautiful woman. Olivia turned to find Camille standing with a distinguished older man who looked vaguely familiar. Olivia, I'd like you to meet Richard Baxter, Camille continued sweetly. He's the CEO of Baxter Media Group. Richard, this is Ethan's fiancée, Olivia Grant. Olivia's blood turned to ice. Baxter Media was Sterling Enterprises' biggest competitor. More importantly, Richard Baxter was notorious for his aggressive business tactics and his collection of corporate secrets. Miss Grant, Richard extended his hand with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Mr. Baxter, Olivia replied politely, shaking his hand briefly. Yes, I specialize in brand strategy. For anyone I might know? It was a seemingly innocent question, but Olivia recognized the fishing expedition. In the corporate world, information was currency, and Richard Baxter was clearly shopping. Small boutique firms mostly. She deflected smoothly. Nothing that would interest someone at your level. Oh, I doubt that. Richard chuckled. In fact, I have a feeling we'll be seeing much more of each other, especially once you're officially part of the Sterling family. Business partnerships can be so complicated when they become personal. The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Olivia felt Ethan stiffen beside her. How interesting, she replied coolly. Though I've found that keeping business and personal life separate usually works best for everyone involved. Does it? Camille interjected with false sweetness. How wonderfully naive. Richard, didn't you mention you were looking for a new marketing consultant? Someone fresh and unencumbered by conflicting loyalties? The ballroom felt suddenly stifling. Olivia realized with crystal clarity that she'd stumbled into the middle of a much larger game, one where the stakes were far higher than a single evening of pretense. Actually, Ethan said, his voice carrying a subtle edge of steel, Olivia's expertise is exactly why Sterling Enterprises values her consultation so highly. Isn't that right, sweetheart? He was giving her an out, a way to claim professional distance if things got ugly. But as Olivia looked around at the faces surrounding them, Camille's calculating smile, Richard's predatory interest, the Sterling family watching anxiously from their table, she made a decision that surprised even herself. Absolutely, she said, moving closer to Ethan and placing her hand possessively on his chest. Though I have to say, mixing business with pleasure has been far more rewarding than I expected. She rose on her tiptoes and kissed Ethan softly, right there on the dance floor in full view of everyone. It was supposed to be for show, a power move to shut down Camille's games and Richard's fishing expedition. But the moment their lips met, everything changed. The kiss was gentle but electric, sending heat racing through her entire body. Ethan's arms tightened around her, and she felt him respond with a hunger that had nothing to do with their charade. When they broke apart, both breathing slightly harder, Olivia saw her own surprise reflected in Ethan's eyes. "Well," Camille said tightly, her composure finally cracking. "How public?" Olivia smiled, keeping her arms around Ethan's neck. "When you find the right person, hiding it seems silly, doesn't it?" But as they returned to their table amid congratulations and knowing smiles from the Sterling family, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just crossed a line she couldn't uncross. And judging by the way Ethan's hand lingered on hers, she wasn't the only one who'd felt the ground shift beneath their feet. The fake engagement was starting to feel dangerously real, and that terrified her more than Camille Laurent and Richard Baxter combined. Manhattan, Olivia's apartment, and Sterling Enterprises. Olivia stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror of her tiny village apartment, still wearing the navy dress from the night before. Her lipstick had long since disappeared, her carefully styled hair was a mess, and her eyes held a shell-shocked expression she couldn't quite shake. The kiss, that stupid, impulsive, earth-shattering kiss that had changed everything. She splashed cold water on her face, trying to wash away the memory of Ethan's lips on hers, the way his arms had tightened around her, the look of genuine surprise in his hazel eyes when they'd broken apart. It was supposed to be an act, a performance to shut down Camille's power games and Richard Baxter's fishing expedition. Instead, it had felt like the most real thing that had happened to her in years. Her phone buzzed on the bathroom counter, a text message that made her stomach flip. "Ethan, 11:47 p.m. Thank you for tonight. You were incredible. Coffee tomorrow to discuss our arrangement." She'd stared at that message for 20 minutes before typing and deleting a dozen different responses. Finally, she'd settled on something professionally neutral. Olivia, 12:09 a.m. Of course, my office at 9 a.m. Ethan, 12:10 a.m. Perfect. Sleep well, sweetheart. That last word had sent her heart racing all over again, which was exactly the problem. Now, at 7:30 the morning, Olivia was nursing her third cup of coffee and trying to convince herself that everything she'd felt the night before was just adrenaline and champagne. Ethan Sterling was a client, albeit an unconventional one. Their arrangement was purely professional. The kiss was strategic theater. She almost had herself convinced when her phone rang. Olivia Grant speaking. "Olivia, darling, it's Eleanor Sterling." Olivia nearly choked on her coffee. "Mrs. Sterling, good morning. Please, call me Eleanor. We're practically family now." Eleanor's voice bubbled with enthusiasm. "I hope you don't mind me calling so early, but I simply couldn't contain my excitement. Last night was absolutely magical. It was certainly memorable. Oh, my dear, you have no idea how happy you've made this old woman's heart. I've been so worried about Ethan. He's always been so focused on business, so reluctant to let anyone close. But watching you two together last night..." Eleanor's voice turned wistful. "I haven't seen him smile like that in years." Olivia's chest tightened with guilt. "Mrs. Sterling, Eleanor. I know. It's presumptuous, but I wondered if you might have time for lunch today, just us girls. I'd love to get to know the woman who's captured my stubborn son's heart." The request hit Olivia like a physical blow. Eleanor's genuine warmth and maternal affection made the deception feel 10 times worse. I'm not sure my schedule. Please, dear. I promise I won't interrogate you too terribly, though I am dying to hear how Ethan proposed again. That story last night was so romantic. Olivia closed her eyes, remembering the elaborate tale she'd spun about Thai takeout and legal briefs. Of course. Lunch sounds lovely. Wonderful. Le Bernardin at 1 o'clock. My treat, naturally. After Eleanor hung up, Olivia sat in stunned silence. Le Bernardin, one of the most expensive restaurants in the city, where a simple lunch could cost more than her monthly subway pass. She was still processing the conversation when her apartment buzzer rang. "Delivery for Olivia Grant," came a voice through the intercom. Olivia frowned. She hadn't ordered anything. When she opened her door, she found a delivery man holding an enormous arrangement of white roses and peonies, at least 3 dozen blooms in a crystal vase that probably cost more than her rent. The card was written in bold, masculine handwriting. "Thank you for the perfect evening. Looking forward to our coffee meeting. E." Olivia set the flowers on her tiny kitchen counter, where they completely dominated the space. They were beautiful, elegant, and absolutely the kind of gesture a real fiancé would make after a romantic evening, which meant Ethan was either a method actor of extraordinary dedication or he was taking their charade very seriously indeed. Her phone buzzed with another text. Sophia Sterling, 8:15 a.m. Saw the flowers being delivered to Sterling Tower for you. Ethan's really pulling out all the stops. Coffee later? I have questions. Olivia blinked. Flowers to Sterling Tower? She grabbed her laptop and quickly searched Sterling Enterprises' main office. Sure enough, the company occupied floors 30 through 45 of a gleaming skyscraper in Midtown. If Sophia had seen flower deliveries there, her phone rang again. This time, the caller ID made her groan. "Hey, Mom. Olivia Catherine Grant." Her mother's voice crackled with excitement across the connection from Chicago. "Why am I finding out about your engagement from the society pages of the New York Times?" Olivia's blood turned to ice. "The what now?" "Page 6, sweetie. There's a lovely photo of you and some incredibly handsome man at what looks like a very fancy party. The caption says Sterling Enterprises heir announces surprise engagement. Olivia, why didn't you tell me you were seeing someone seriously?" Olivia's hands shook as she pulled up the Times website on her laptop. There it was in living color. A professional quality photograph of her and Ethan on the dance floor, caught in the moment just before their kiss. She looked radiant and in love. He looked like he was gazing at the center of his universe. The caption read, "Ethan Sterling, CEO of Sterling Enterprises, with his newly announced fiancée, Olivia Grant, at last night's charity gala." The couple's whirlwind romance has surprised Manhattan society, with sources close to the Sterling family describing them as completely smitten. "Mom, I can explain." "Oh, honey, you don't need to explain anything. I'm just so happy for you. He looks wonderful, and clearly he adores you. Though I do wish you'd mentioned him before last night. When's the wedding? Will it be in New York? Oh, your father is going to want to meet him immediately." Olivia rubbed her temples, feeling a massive headache building. "Mom, slow down. It's complicated. All the best love stories are complicated, sweetheart. But that photograph doesn't lie. You two are crazy about each other. A mother knows these things." After hanging up with promises to call later with more details, Olivia sat staring at the photograph on her laptop screen. Her mother was right. The camera had captured something that looked undeniably real. The way Ethan was looking at her, the way she was smiling up at him. It was like viewing evidence of a relationship she didn't remember having. At 8:45, Olivia arrived at Sterling Tower, still feeling shell-shocked. The lobby was all marble and glass, with abstract sculptures that probably cost more than most people's houses. She gave her name to the security desk, trying to project confidence she didn't feel. "Miss Grant, welcome," the security guard beamed. "Mr. Sterling is expecting you, top floor, elevator bank C." As the elevator climbed toward the penthouse level, Olivia caught her reflection in the polished steel doors. She'd chosen a professional but approachable outfit. A burgundy blazer with matching pants and heels that gave her enough height to look Ethan in the eye. She looked competent, successful, and hopefully not like someone whose life had just been turned completely upside down. The elevator doors opened directly into a reception area that screamed understated luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of Central Park, and the furniture looked like it belonged in a museum. "Miss Grant," a perfectly groomed assistant appeared. "I'm Lauren, Mr. Sterling's executive assistant. He's waiting for you in his office. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Water? Congratulations, by the way. The whole office is buzzing about your engagement. Olivia managed a weak smile. Coffee would be great. Thank you. Lauren led her down a corridor lined with original artwork and into an office that took Olivia's breath away. The space was enormous, with windows on two sides offering panoramic views of Manhattan. Ethan stood behind a desk, the size of a small car, wearing a perfectly fitted charcoal suit and talking quietly into a phone. He looked up when she entered, and his smile was genuinely warm. I'll call you back, he said into the phone, hanging up immediately. Olivia, you look beautiful. We need to talk, she said without preamble. Good morning to you too. Ethan's smile widened as he moved around his desk. Did you see the flowers? I wanted to thank you properly for last night. Flowers, plural? Olivia pulled out her phone and showed him Sophia's text. How many arrangements did you send? Ethan had the grace to look slightly sheepish. 3. Your apartment, here, and 1 to your office address that I found in our background research files. Background research files? Olivia, I'm a businessman. When I enter into any arrangement, I do my due diligence. He gestured toward a leather folder on his desk. Nothing invasive, just public records, professional history, credit check, standard stuff. Olivia stared at him. You ran a credit check on me? You agreed to pose as my fiancé to some of the most powerful people in New York. I needed to know you weren't going to sell the story to the tabloids or turn out to be a corporate spy. Ethan's tone was matter-of-fact. Though I have to say, your background is impressively clean. Northwestern graduate, summa cum laude. 3 years at Vanguard Marketing Solutions with glowing reviews. Apartment lease paid on time every month. No criminal record. No suspicious associations. I feel so vetted. You should feel complimented. I don't trust easily. Ethan moved to a coffee service set up near the windows. Though after last night, I'm thinking my research didn't capture the most important things about you. He turned to face her, coffee cup in hand, such as the fact that you're quick thinking under pressure, naturally charming with difficult people, and, his voice dropped slightly, an incredibly convincing actress. The word actress hung in the air between them, loaded with unspoken questions. Ethan, Olivia said carefully, we need to establish some ground rules. Moving forward, Ethan leaned against the window frame, studying her with those penetrating hazel eyes. Moving forward, Olivia pulled out her phone and showed him the Times article. Your family, the press apparently half of Manhattan thinks we're engaged. Really engaged. Ethan scanned the article, his expression unreadable. Impressive photography. We look good together. Ethan, this is serious. Your mother called me this morning wanting to have lunch. My mother called me because she saw this in the paper. Sophia is asking questions. How exactly did you plan to end this charade without destroying your family relationships and my professional reputation? Ethan set down his coffee cup and moved closer to her, close enough that she could smell his cologne again, that same dangerous scent that had made her dizzy on the dance floor. Who says we have to end it? Olivia's breath caught. Excuse me? Think about it logically, Olivia. You need a major client to establish your independent consulting business. I need a relationship that will satisfy my family's expectations and keep the vultures like Camille at bay. Ethan's voice was calm, reasonable. We work well together. Last night proved that. Last night was one evening, one very successful evening. My mother loves you. The family accepted you immediately. The press coverage is positive. Ethan stepped closer, and Olivia found herself backing toward his desk. We could make this work, Olivia. A partnership that benefits both of us. A fake partnership? Why does it have to be fake? Ethan's hand came up to cup her cheek, his thumb brushing across her skin with devastating gentleness. That kiss last night didn't feel fake to me. Olivia's pulse hammered against her throat. She was trapped between Ethan and his desk, overwhelmed by his proximity and the memory of how right it had felt to be in his arms. Ethan, 6 months, he said quietly. Give me 6 months to prove this could work. A real relationship, not just a business arrangement. 6 months to see if what we felt last night was worth exploring. Olivia stared up at him, her mind racing. 6 months with Ethan Sterling. 6 months of luxury events, family dinners, professional opportunities beyond her wildest dreams. 6 months of pretending to be in love with a man who was quickly becoming far too easy to care about. And after 6 months, if it doesn't work out, we have an amicable breakup. Mutual decision, no hard feelings. I'll provide references for your consulting business that will set you up for life. It was a reasonable offer, a generous offer. The smart business decision would be to accept immediately. But as Olivia looked into Ethan's eyes, she realized the danger wasn't that the arrangement would fail. The danger was that it might actually succeed. I need time to think about this, she said finally. Ethan smiled and stepped back, giving her space to breathe. Of course, take all the time you need. But Olivia, he caught her hand as she turned to leave. Whatever we decide, I want you to know that last night was the first time in years that I felt like myself instead of just Ethan Sterling, CEO. Olivia's heart did something complicated in her chest. I'll call you later. As she walked toward the elevator, Lauren appeared with a fresh cup of coffee and a warm smile. Miss Grant, Mr. Sterling asked me to give you this. She handed Olivia an envelope along with the coffee. Inside the envelope was a check for $50,000 and a note. Consulting fee for services rendered last evening. Regardless of what you decide about the future, you earned every penny. E. Olivia stared at the check, her emotions warring between gratitude, confusion, and something that felt dangerously close to affection. $50,000 more money than she'd made in the last 6 months combined. Money that would allow her to leave Vanguard Marketing and start her own firm immediately, with or without Ethan's extended offer. He was giving her the freedom to choose, she realized. No pressure, no manipulation, just an honest offer and the means to walk away if she wanted to. It was, she thought, as the elevator descended toward the lobby, exactly the kind of gesture that made Ethan Sterling far too easy to fall for. And as she stepped out onto the busy Manhattan street, clutching her coffee and the most generous consulting fee of her career, Olivia Grant made a decision that would change everything. She was going to take the biggest risk of her professional life. She was going to say yes, Manhattan, various locations. Olivia had exactly 4 hours between accepting Ethan's proposal and her lunch with Eleanor Sterling to figure out how to be a convincing fake-real fiancé to one of Manhattan's most socially connected women. She spent the first hour pacing her apartment, the second hour researching Eleanor's charitable interests online, and the third hour having what could only be described as a minor panic attack in her tiny bathroom. The fourth hour she spent getting ready and giving herself a stern talking to in the mirror. You're Olivia Grant, she told her reflection, adjusting the collar of her cream silk blouse. You've pitched to Fortune, 500 CEOs. You've turned around failing brands. You can handle lunch with your fake future mother-in-law. The pep talk might have been more convincing if her hands weren't shaking as she applied lipstick. Le Bernardine was exactly as intimidating as Olivia had expected. All subtle lighting, impeccable service, and the kind of hushed atmosphere that whispered, extremely expensive. Eleanor was already seated at a prime table, looking effortlessly elegant in a dove, gray cashmere dress that probably cost more than Olivia's monthly salary. Olivia, darling. Eleanor rose to embrace her with genuine warmth. You look absolutely radiant. That color is perfect on you. Thank you, Olivia managed, accepting the hug and trying not to feel guilty about the deception. This place is beautiful. Oh, it's one of my favorites. The chef is simply divine. I hope you don't mind, but I took the liberty of ordering the tasting menu. I thought it would give us more time to chat. As they settled into their seats and the sommelier appeared to discuss wine pairings, Olivia realized she was completely out of her depth. This wasn't just lunch. It was a masterclass in high society dining, complete with multiple courses, vintage wines, and conversation that flowed effortlessly between charity galas, European vacations, and mutual acquaintances Olivia had never heard of. So tell me, Eleanor said as their first course arrived, some kind of artfully arranged seafood Olivia couldn't identify. How are you finding the adjustment to Ethan's world? It can be quite overwhelming at first. Olivia nearly choked on her wine. Adjustment? Oh, my dear, don't look so worried. Eleanor laughed, reaching across to pat Olivia's hand. I remember when I first married Ethan's father, I was terrified I'd use the wrong fork or say something inappropriate. The Sterling family can seem intimidating, but we're really quite ordinary underneath all the fuss. There was nothing ordinary about a woman who casually dropped references to her house in the Hamptons and her upcoming trip to her villa in Tuscany, but Olivia nodded politely. Ethan mentioned you came from Chicago originally, Eleanor continued. Tell me about your family. I'm dying to hear everything. Olivia found herself talking about her parents, her father's accounting firm, her mother's volunteer work at the local library, their modest but comfortable life in a Chicago suburb. Eleanor listened with genuine interest, asking thoughtful questions and sharing stories about her own middle-class upbringing in Boston. "People assume I was born to all this," Eleanor said, gesturing around the elegant restaurant. "But William and I built Sterling Enterprises from nothing. Well, almost nothing. He had a small construction company when we married, and I had a degree in business administration and more ambition than sense. You were business partners in every sense of the word. I handled the financial side while he managed operations. We made quite a team." Eleanor's eyes grew distant. "He passed 5 years ago, you know. Heart attack. Completely unexpected." Olivia felt a pang of genuine sympathy. "I'm so sorry." "Thank you, dear. It's been difficult." Ethan threw himself into the business afterward, working 18-hour days, never taking time for himself. "I've been so worried about him becoming like his father, brilliant at business, but forgetting to live." Eleanor's smile was soft but sad. "That's why seeing him with you makes me so happy. You've brought something back to his eyes that's been missing for years." The guilt hit Olivia like a physical blow. Here was a grieving mother, desperate to see her son happy, and Olivia was participating in an elaborate deception that would ultimately disappoint her. "Mrs. Sterling, Eleanor, I should tell you, you're nervous about the family scrutiny, darling. Every woman who loves a Sterling man goes through this. The press attention, the social expectations, the constant feeling that you're being evaluated." Eleanor leaned forward conspiratorially. "Can I share a secret? The key is remembering that none of it matters. Not the society pages, not the charity boards, not even the family opinions. What matters is what's between you and Ethan." Olivia stared at her, struck by the wisdom in her words and the genuine affection in her eyes. "Now," Eleanor continued, her tone becoming brighter, "we absolutely must discuss the engagement party. I was thinking something intimate, maybe 150 people. We could use the house in the Hamptons, or if you prefer something more urban, the penthouse has lovely terraces." "Engagement party?" Olivia's voice came out slightly strangled. "Of course, we can't let an engagement like this pass without proper celebration. Though I suppose we should wait a few weeks. Let the initial press attention die down a bit. You've been getting quite a bit of coverage, you know." Olivia's phone, which had been buzzing intermittently throughout lunch, chose that moment to ring loudly. She glanced at the screen and saw Sophia's name. "I should probably take this." "Go ahead, dear. I'll just powder my nose," Eleanor said as she excused herself. "Sophia," Olivia answered. "Olivia, thank goodness. Where are you? Having lunch with your aunt." "Why? What's wrong? Have you seen the news?" "There's something you need to know about Camille Laurent." Olivia's stomach dropped. "What kind of something?" "The kind that could destroy Ethan's business and your reputation. Can you meet me after your lunch?" This conversation needs to happen in person. After Sophia hung up, Olivia sat staring at her phone, her appetite completely gone. Whatever Camille was planning, it was clearly more serious than petty ex-girlfriend jealousy. Eleanor returned with a refreshed smile and launched into detailed planning for the engagement party, discussing everything from floral arrangements to the guest list. Olivia tried to focus, making appropriate responses while her mind raced with possibilities of what Camille might be plotting. "I hope you don't mind," Eleanor said as their dessert course arrived, "but I've already started working on the guest list. All the important families, of course, plus Ethan's business associates and your friends. You'll need to give me a list of people from your side family, college friends, professional contacts." Olivia's mouth went dry. A guest list of people who would know she'd never mentioned Ethan Sterling before 3 days ago. People who would ask uncomfortable questions about the whirlwind romance. That sounds comprehensive. "Oh, it will be the event of the season. I'm thinking late spring, maybe early summer. June weddings are so traditional, don't you think?" "June weddings?" Olivia managed weakly. "Well, we'll need time to plan properly. A Sterling family wedding is quite an undertaking. The venue, the guest list, the dress shopping. Oh, Olivia, we're going to have such fun planning your special day." By the time lunch ended, Olivia felt like she'd been through an emotional blender. Eleanor's genuine enthusiasm and maternal warmth made the deception feel increasingly wrong, but she was also beginning to understand the full scope of what she'd agreed to. This wasn't just about convincing Ethan's family for 6 months. It was about maintaining an elaborate fiction that touched every aspect of both their lives. Sophia was waiting at a coffee shop in Soho, her usually perfect composure replaced by obvious anxiety. She stood the moment Olivia entered, pulling her toward a secluded corner table. "Okay. We need to talk fast," Sophia said without preamble. "How much do you know about why Ethan and Camille really broke up?" He said she expected an engagement ring, and he realized he didn't want to marry her. Sophia snorted. "That's the sanitized version. The truth is much worse." She pulled out her phone and showed Olivia a series of photos. Ethan and Camille at various social events, looking like the perfect power couple. Camille wasn't just Ethan's girlfriend. She was positioning herself as his business partner. She had access to confidential information, client lists, strategic plans. Olivia studied the photos. What kind of access? The kind that comes from sharing a bed with the CEO and having your own keycard to the executive floor. Sophia's expression was grim. Ethan was completely infatuated with her. He thought he was in love, so he trusted her with everything. When the relationship ended, she didn't just lose a boyfriend, she lost access to millions of dollars worth of corporate intelligence, and now she wants it back. Worse, she wants revenge. And Richard Baxter is helping her get it. Olivia felt cold spreading through her chest. "What do you mean?" Camille's been feeding information to Baxter Media for months. Old information from when she was with Ethan, but enough to give Baxter an edge in several recent deals. Now that she knows about your engagement and believes it's real, she's planning something bigger. Like what? Like proving that you're a corporate spy planted by a rival company to gain access to Sterling Enterprises' secrets. Sophia's voice was deadly serious. "Think about it, Olivia. You appear out of nowhere. Ethan falls for you instantly. You have immediate access to family events and business functions. To someone looking for a conspiracy, it's almost too convenient." Olivia's mind raced through the implications. "But that's ridiculous. I know that, and you know that, but Camille doesn't. She thinks Ethan is using the same playbook he used with her, mixing business with pleasure. She's convinced you're either a spy or a gold digger. And she's determined to prove it." "How?" Sophia hesitated. "She's having you investigated. Professional investigators, financial background checks, social media analysis. If there's anything in your past that could be twisted to look suspicious, she'll find it." Olivia thought about her modest background, her student loans, her tiny apartment. "There's nothing to find. Maybe not, but Camille's resourceful, and she has Richard Baxter's money backing her." Sophia grabbed Olivia's hands across the table. "Olivia, I like you. You seem genuine, and you make Ethan happier than I've seen him in years. But you need to understand what you're walking into. This isn't just about playing house with my cousin for 6 months. Camille will try to destroy you, and if she succeeds, she'll take Ethan down with you." Olivia stared at Sophia, the full weight of her situation finally sinking in. She thought the biggest challenge would be maintaining the deception with Ethan's family. She hadn't considered that there might be people actively working to expose and destroy her. What do I do? Be careful, be smart, and whatever you do, don't give Camille any ammunition. Sophia's expression softened slightly. Also, be honest with Ethan. He needs to know what he's up against. After Sophia left, Olivia sat alone in the coffee shop, staring at her phone. She had 17 missed calls and 23 text messages. Reporters wanting interviews, society columnists requesting comments, and several messages from numbers she didn't recognize. Her quiet life as an anonymous marketing consultant was officially over. Her phone buzzed with a new text from Ethan. "How was lunch with Mother? Hope she didn't overwhelm you too much. Dinner tonight. I'll cook." Despite everything, Olivia found herself smiling. Ethan Sterling, billionaire CEO, offering to cook dinner. It was almost absurdly normal. She typed back, "Lunch was enlightening. Dinner sounds perfect. We need to talk. Serious talk or good talk? Complicated talk, my favorite kind. My place at 7. I'll make something that pairs well with complicated conversations." Olivia pocketed her phone and headed toward the subway, her mind already working through everything she needed to tell Ethan: the investigation, Camille's vendetta, the engagement party Eleanor was planning, the growing list of lies they'd need to maintain. But as she descended into the underground tunnels, dodging the evening commuter crowd, Olivia realized something that surprised her. Despite the complications, despite the risks, Despite the very real possibility that this could all blow up spectacularly in her face, she was looking forward to dinner with Ethan. Maybe Sophia was right. Maybe she was making Ethan happier than he'd been in years. The problem was, he was doing the same thing to her, and that made everything infinitely more dangerous. Ethan's penthouse apartment was everything Olivia had expected, and nothing she was prepared for. The space was massive but somehow intimate, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of the city. The decor was modern but warm, expensive art mixed with comfortable furniture and unexpected personal touches like family photos and well-worn books. "Welcome to my humble abode," Ethan said, taking her coat. He'd changed from his business suit into dark jeans and a cashmere sweater that did devastating things to his shoulders. Humble. Olivia looked around at what was easily a $10 million apartment. "I don't think you understand that word." "Fair point. Welcome to my ridiculously overpriced but comfortable abode." Ethan grinned. "Wine? I have a nice Bordeaux breathing. Or there's champagne if we're celebrating." "Are we celebrating?" Ethan's expression grew more serious. "That depends on what you decided about my proposal." Olivia set her purse down on his granite kitchen island, gathering her courage. "I'm in. 6 months. Real relationship. See what happens." Ethan's smile was blinding. "Really? Really? But Ethan, there are things you need to know. Complications. Tell me everything while I cook. I think better when my hands are busy." Over the next hour, while Ethan prepared what turned out to be an incredibly sophisticated pasta dish, Olivia told him everything. Eleanor's engagement party plans, Sophia's warnings about Camille's investigation, the growing media attention, the pressure of maintaining their story with family and friends. Ethan listened without interruption, his movements in the kitchen efficient and sure. Olivia found herself watching his hands as he chopped vegetables and stirred sauce, noticing the way his sleeves were rolled up to reveal strong forearms, the focused concentration on his face. "So," he said finally, plating their dinner with professional precision, "Camille thinks you're a corporate spy. My mother wants to throw us a party for 150 people, and the press has decided we're the romance of the century." That's a pretty accurate summary. Ethan carried their plates to a small dining table positioned to take advantage of the city views. "Olivia, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest." Olivia's stomach clenched. "Okay, are you having second thoughts? Because if you are, we can end this right now. I'll handle the fallout with my family, pay for any reputation management you need, and make sure you're not hurt by any of this." Olivia stared at him across the candlelit table. He was giving her another out, she realized, even after she'd agreed to his proposal, even knowing what it would cost him personally and professionally. "Why would you do that?" "Because, despite what Camille thinks, I'm not in the habit of using people." Ethan's voice was quiet, but intense. "And because the last thing I want is for you to feel trapped." Olivia thought about everything that had led her to this moment. The chance encounter at the plaza, the electric chemistry on the dance floor, the way Ethan looked at her like she was the most fascinating person in the room. She thought about Eleanor's maternal warmth, Sophia's friendship, the professional opportunities that stretched before her like a golden road. But mostly, she thought about the man sitting across from her who'd offered her freedom twice in one day, simply because he wanted her to choose him willingly. "I'm not having second thoughts," she said finally, "but I need you to understand something. I've never done anything like this before. I don't know how to be the girlfriend of a billionaire. I don't know the rules of your world, and I'm probably going to make mistakes." Ethan reached across the table and took her hand. "Olivia, the reason I'm attracted to you is because you're not from my world. You're real in a way that's incredibly rare in my life, even though we started with a lie, especially because we started with a lie that turned into the most honest conversation I've had with anyone in years." Ethan's thumb brushed across her knuckles, sending familiar sparks up her arm. "Can I tell you something?" Olivia nodded, not trusting her voice. "When I saw you in that ballroom, looking lost and determined and absolutely beautiful, my first thought wasn't about solving my engagement problem. It was that I wanted to know everything about the woman who could look that confident, while clearly being completely out of place. I wasn't confident. I was terrified. You were magnificent." Ethan lifted her hand and pressed a soft kiss to her palm. "And you still are." The gesture was simple, but it sent heat racing through Olivia's entire body. The candlelight, the intimate setting, the way Ethan was looking at her, it all felt dangerously romantic. "Ethan," she said softly, I know this is complicated. I know we're starting backward, with the public relationship before the private one, but I meant what I said this morning. What I feel with you is real. Ethan stood and moved around the table to her side. Dance with me. There's no music. Ethan pulled out his phone and queued up a slow song, something soft and jazzy that filled the apartment with gentle melody. Then he offered her his hand. Olivia hesitated for a moment before accepting, letting him pull her into his arms in the middle of his living room. With the lights of Manhattan twinkling beyond the windows, they moved together slowly, more swaying than dancing, and Olivia felt the same electric connection that had surprised her on the ballroom floor. But this time, there was no audience, no need to perform. This was just them, alone with the music and the growing awareness that their fake relationship was becoming something much more real and much more dangerous. Olivia, Ethan said quietly, his lips close to her ear. I'm going to kiss you now. Not for show, not for the cameras, just because I want to. Olivia pulled back to meet his eyes, seeing the question there, the choice. She could step away, maintain professional distance, keep things safely superficial. Instead, she rose on her tiptoes and kissed him first. This time, there was no hesitation, no surprise. This time, Olivia kissed Ethan Sterling with full knowledge of what she was doing and complete acceptance of the consequences. He responded with a hunger that matched her own, his arms tightening around her as the kiss deepened into something that made her forget about Camille's schemes, Eleanor's expectations, and every reason this was a terrible idea. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. Still think this is just pretend? He asked. Olivia looked into his eyes, seeing her own desire and confusion reflected there. No, she whispered. But that might be the most dangerous part of all. Manhattan, 3 weeks later. Olivia Grant had gotten used to a lot of things in 3 weeks. She'd gotten used to paparazzi waiting outside her apartment building every morning. She'd gotten used to society columnists analyzing her outfits and speculating about wedding dates. She'd gotten used to having dinner reservations at restaurants she'd never dreamed of affording. And she'd gotten used to Ethan's driver picking her up in a car that cost more than most people's houses. What she hadn't gotten used to was how natural it all felt when Ethan took her hand in his. You're thinking too hard again, Ethan said, his thumb tracing circles on her palm as their car glided through Manhattan traffic toward the Sterling Enterprises annual shareholders meeting. I can practically hear the gears turning. Olivia looked over at him, struck as always by how devastatingly handsome he looked in his perfectly tailored suits. Today's was navy with subtle pinstripes, paired with a silver tie that brought out the hazel in his eyes. 3 weeks of spending nearly every evening together had done nothing to diminish the effect he had on her pulse rate. I'm just thinking about the meeting, she lied. She was actually thinking about the conversation she'd had with her parents the night before, another long-distance interrogation about wedding plans and their mysterious new son-in-law-to-be. Her mother had started buying bridal magazines, and her father had begun researching Ethan's financial disclosures online. The shareholders will love you, Ethan assured her, lifting her hand to brush a kiss across her knuckles. Besides, you won't have to do anything except sit there looking beautiful and occasionally nod supportively. I feel like a trophy wife. You're not a wife yet, and you're definitely not a trophy. Ethan's expression grew serious. Olivia, you know that's not what this is about, right? What we have. It was a question that had been hovering between them for weeks. Their relationship had evolved at warp speed, dinners every night, weekend getaways to the Hamptons, family events where they played their part so convincingly that Olivia sometimes forgot they were acting at all. Ethan had been the perfect boyfriend, attentive, romantic, respectful of her boundaries, while making it clear he wanted more. The problem was that Olivia was starting to want more too. A lot more. I know, she said softly, and meant it. Whatever had started as a business arrangement 3 weeks ago had transformed into something that felt suspiciously like falling in love. The Sterling Enterprises building was buzzing with activity when they arrived. Shareholders, board members, and financial journalists filled the lobby, all waiting for the annual meeting that would determine the company's direction for the coming year. Olivia spotted several faces she recognized from their various social engagements, the same wealthy, powerful people who'd welcomed her into their circle with varying degrees of warmth. There's my favorite power couple. Sophia appeared at Olivia's elbow, radiant in a designer suit that probably cost more than Olivia's monthly rent. Ready to charm the shareholders, cousin? As ready as one can be to sit through 4 hours of financial presentations, Ethan replied dryly. Olivia, You remember my cousin Sophia? Of course. Hi, Sophia. Olivia accepted the air kisses. Still not quite used to the elaborate greeting rituals of Manhattan's elite, Sophia's smile was warm, but her eyes were sharp with concern. Olivia, could I steal you for a quick powder room touch-up before things get started? Olivia recognized a request for private conversation when she heard one. Of course, the ladies' room was empty except for them, and Sophia immediately pulled out her phone. We have a problem, she said without preamble. Camille's investigation turned up something. Olivia's stomach dropped. What kind of something? Sophia showed her a photograph on her phone. Olivia at a coffee shop, but not alone. She was sitting across from a man in an expensive suit, leaning forward in intense conversation. Who is that? Sophia asked. Olivia studied the photo, her heart sinking as she recognized the scene. That's Daniel Carter from Carter & Associates. I had a meeting with him 2 weeks ago about potentially taking on their rebranding project. When? Olivia thought back. Last Tuesday afternoon. Ethan was in meetings all day, so I had lunch with Daniel to discuss the project scope. Sophia's expression grew more worried. Olivia, Daniel Carter works for Baxter Media Group. He's one of Richard Baxter's senior executives. The blood drained from Olivia's face. That's impossible. He told me he was with Carter & Associates. A boutique marketing firm. There is no Carter & Associates. I checked. Sophia's voice was gentle but firm. Olivia, you were set up. Camille arranged that meeting to make it look like you were having secret rendezvous with Baxter's people. Olivia felt sick, but I never told him anything sensitive. We just discussed general marketing strategies, basic branding concepts. It doesn't matter what you discussed. What matters is how it looks. Sophia showed her another photo, this one of Olivia and Daniel shaking hands outside the coffee shop. To someone looking for evidence of corporate espionage, this is a smoking gun. When is she planning to release this? Sophia checked her watch. According to my source, Camille's planning to confront Ethan publicly at today's shareholders' meeting. She's going to present this as evidence that you're feeding Sterling Enterprises' secrets to their biggest competitor. Olivia's knees went weak. The shareholders meeting hundreds of people, including financial journalists and board members. If Camille made these accusations publicly, it would destroy not only Olivia's reputation, but Ethan's as well. The CEO who'd been duped by a corporate spy would lose credibility with investors and clients alike. I have to tell Ethan, Olivia said, moving toward the door. Sophia caught her arm. Olivia, wait. Think about this carefully. If you tell Ethan about this now, right before the biggest meeting of his year, he'll be distracted and emotional. He needs to be sharp and focused today. I can't let him be blindsided. You won't be. I'm going to find Camille and try to reason with her. Buy us some time. You go to that meeting, play your part perfectly, and afterward, we'll figure out how to handle this together. Olivia stared at Sophia, torn between gratitude and terror. Why are you helping me? Sophia's smile was sad but genuine. Because in 3 weeks, you've done something I never thought possible. You've made my cousin actually happy. Ethan's been different since he met you lighter, more like the person he used to be before business consumed his entire life. Sophia continued. Also, I've watched you these past few weeks, the way you handle difficult social situations, the way you support Ethan without trying to change him, the way you fit into our family like you were always meant to be there. She squeezed Olivia's hand. Either you're the most talented actress I've ever met, or you're genuinely in love with him. Olivia's throat tightened. It's not acting anymore. I know. That's why we're going to fix this. The shareholders' meeting was held in Sterling Enterprises' largest conference room, a space that could easily accommodate 500 people. Olivia sat in the front row, designated for family and senior executives, trying to project calm confidence while her heart raced with anxiety. Ethan stood at the podium, commanding the room with ease as he presented the company's annual report. He was brilliant at this, articulating complex financial concepts in accessible terms, answering difficult questions with wit and authority, painting a vision for the company's future that made investors lean forward with interest. Olivia found herself genuinely captivated, watching him in his element. This was Ethan Sterling at his most powerful, and the effect was intoxicating. Ladies and gentlemen, Ethan was saying, Sterling Enterprises has achieved unprecedented growth this year, with revenue increases of 32% and expansion into 4 new international markets. This success is built on the foundation my parents established: innovation, integrity, and an unwavering commitment to excellence. The room erupted in applause, and Olivia felt a surge of pride that had nothing to do with their arrangement. Ethan was genuinely impressive, and he deserved every bit of success he'd achieved. That's when Camille Laurent stood up. She was seated toward the back of the room, stunning in a red power suit that commanded attention. When she raised her hand to be recognized, a murmur rippled through the audience. "Yes, Miss Laurent." Ethan's voice remained perfectly professional, but Olivia saw his jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. "Thank you, Ethan. I have a question about the company's security protocols, particularly regarding confidential information and potential corporate espionage." The room went dead silent. Olivia's hands clenched in her lap as several board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "I'm not sure I understand the relevance to today's financial presentation," Ethan replied carefully. Camille smiled, sharp as a blade. "Well, given the company's recent high-profile acquisitions and the competitive nature of our industry, I think shareholders have a right to know whether Sterling Enterprises has adequate protections in place against information leaks. Our security measures are comprehensive and regularly updated," Ethan responded. "We work with top-tier cybersecurity firms and maintain strict protocols for handling sensitive information." "I'm sure you do. But what about more personal security risks?" Olivia felt every eye in the room turn toward her, even though most people probably didn't understand the implication yet. "I'm afraid I don't follow," Ethan said, his voice carrying a warning edge. Camille produced a folder from her briefcase with theatrical flair. "I'm referring to situations where individuals with intimate access to company executives might pose security risks. For instance, if someone close to leadership were having undisclosed meetings with competitors." The room erupted in whispers. Olivia's face burned with humiliation and rage as she realized Camille was about to destroy her in the most public way possible. Ethan's eyes found Olivia's across the room, and she saw the moment he understood what was happening. His expression shifted from professional calm to barely controlled fury. "Miss Laurent," he said, his voice carrying across the room like a cold wind, "if you have specific concerns about company security, I'd be happy to address them privately with the appropriate board members. However, I don't think a shareholders' meeting is the appropriate venue for vague accusations." "Oh, but I have very specific concerns." Camille opened her folder and held up the photograph Sophia had shown Olivia. "Such as why your fiancé has been having secret meetings with Daniel Carter, a senior executive at Baxter Media Group." The room exploded. Journalists scrambled for their phones, board members spoke in urgent whispers, and Olivia felt her entire world collapse in real time. Ethan's face had gone completely white, but his voice remained steady. "Miss Laurent, you are out of order. Security, please escort." "I'm not finished," Camille continued, her voice rising. "Olivia Grant has had multiple undisclosed contacts with Baxter Media personnel, despite being intimately involved with Sterling Enterprises' CEO. At best, this represents a serious conflict of interest. At worst, it's corporate espionage of the highest order." Olivia stood up, her legs shaking but her voice clear. "That's enough." The room fell silent. All attention focused on her. Olivia could see the shock on Ethan's face, the satisfaction on Camille's, the mixture of curiosity and suspicion on hundreds of others. "You want to know about my meeting with Daniel Carter?" Olivia said, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. "I'll tell you exactly what happened." She pulled out her own phone, her hand steadier now that she'd made her decision. 3 weeks ago, I received a call from someone claiming to represent Carter and Associates, a boutique marketing firm. They wanted to discuss a potential consulting project. I agreed to meet because that's my profession. I'm a marketing consultant. Olivia looked directly at Camille. "What I didn't know is that Daniel Carter lied about who he worked for. What I didn't know is that the entire meeting was a setup orchestrated by someone with a personal vendetta against Ethan Sterling." "That's ridiculous," Camille started. But Olivia cut her off. "Is it?" "Because I have something you might find interesting." Olivia pulled up her phone's recording app. "I record all my business meetings for note-taking purposes. Would you like to hear what Daniel Carter and I actually discussed?" Olivia pressed play, and her own voice filled the silent room. "So, tell me about Carter and Associates. What kind of clients do you typically work with?" "Oh, we're very boutique, mostly small firms looking to refresh their brand image. Nothing too exciting." "And this project you mentioned? What's the scope? Basic logo redesign, maybe some social media strategy? Pretty standard stuff." Though I have to say, Miss Grant, I'm surprised someone with your connections would be interested in such a small project. My connections? Well, being engaged to Ethan Sterling must open a lot of doors. I bet you hear all sorts of interesting things about the industry. Olivia stopped the recording and looked around the room. This is where it gets interesting, because this is where I realized Daniel Carter wasn't who he claimed to be. She resumed the recording. Mr. Carter, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I don't discuss my personal relationships in business contexts, and I certainly don't share confidential information. If that's what this meeting is about, we're finished here. Miss Grant, I think you're being overly cautious. No, I think you're being unprofessional. This meeting is over. Olivia pocketed her phone and looked directly at Camille. The recording continues for another 2 minutes, during which Daniel Carter becomes increasingly desperate to get information about Sterling Enterprises. Information I never provided. The room was completely silent now, hundreds of people hanging on every word. You want to know the truth about my relationship with Ethan Sterling? Olivia continued, her voice growing stronger. The truth is that 3 weeks ago, I was a nobody, a marketing consultant struggling to build her own firm, working out of a tiny apartment in Brooklyn. Ethan Sterling could have had anyone supermodels, women who actually belonged in his world. Olivia's eyes found Ethan's across the room, and she saw something in them that gave her courage to continue. But he chose me, not because I could give him anything, not because I had connections or money or social status. He chose me because when we met, we saw something real in each other, something worth risking everything for. She turned back to face the room. So, yes, Camille, Ethan and I started our relationship unconventionally. And yes, there are people who think I'm not good enough for him, that I'm some kind of gold digger or corporate spy. But you know what? I don't care what you think. Olivia's voice rang with conviction now. I care about the man who makes me laugh every day, who listens to my dreams and supports my ambitions, who sees me as an equal partner rather than an accessory. I care about the man who's building something meaningful with his life and wants to share it with someone who appreciates not just his success, but his heart. She looked at Ethan again, and this time her voice grew soft but carried to every corner of the silent room. Ethan, I know this isn't how we planned to do this. I know this complicates everything we've built together, but I love you. Not your money, not your status, not the opportunities you've given me. I love you for who you are when it's just us, when there's no audience and no expectations. I love your terrible jokes and your competitive streak when we play board games. I love how you make pancakes on Sunday mornings and how you always give way too much money to street musicians. Tears were streaming down Olivia's face now, but she didn't care. I love how you see the best in people, even when they disappoint you. I love how hard you work, not just for success, but to honor your parents' legacy. And I love how you make me feel like I'm enough, exactly as I am. The room was so quiet, Olivia could hear her own heartbeat. Ethan stood frozen at the podium, his face a mask of shock and wonder, and something that looked dangerously like love. So, if that makes me a gold digger, Olivia said, turning back to Camille with defiance blazing in her eyes, then I guess I'm guilty as charged. But I'd rather be a woman who loves honestly than someone who destroys people out of jealousy and spite. Olivia sat down, her legs finally giving out, and waited for the world to end. Instead, something unexpected happened. Eleanor Sterling, who had been sitting in the family section looking pale and shocked, stood up and began to clap. Sophia joined her immediately, then Uncle Henry, then Aunt Margaret. Within moments, the entire Sterling family section was on their feet, applauding. The applause spread through the room like wildfire. Board members, shareholders, even some of the journalists were standing, clapping for Olivia's courage and honesty. Ethan stepped away from the podium and walked directly to Olivia, his eyes never leaving her face. The room fell silent again, watching, waiting. When he reached her, Ethan took her face in his hands and looked into her eyes. Olivia Grant, he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. You are the most extraordinary woman I have ever met. Then he kissed her, right there in front of 500 people, kissed her like she was the only person in the world who mattered. When they broke apart, Ethan kept his forehead against hers. I love you too, he whispered. But the room was so silent, everyone heard it. I love your courage and your kindness, and the way you make everything in my life better just by being in it. He straightened and addressed the room, his arm around Olivia's waist. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to formally introduce my fiancée, Olivia Grant, not because she needs my introduction or my protection as you've just witnessed, but because I want everyone to know how proud I am to have her in my life. The applause was thunderous this time, and Olivia realized that Camille's attempt to destroy her had backfired spectacularly. Instead of exposing her as a fraud, it had given Olivia the chance to reveal the truth that sometimes love really does conquer all. Camille herself had gone completely white and was quietly slipping toward the exit, her folder of accusations forgotten on her chair. As the meeting resumed and Ethan returned to his presentation, Olivia sat in a daze, trying to process what had just happened. She had just confessed her love to Ethan Sterling in front of 500 people, including financial journalists who would probably turn it into front-page news. But more importantly, he had said he loved her back, and for the first time in 3 weeks, Olivia Grant felt like she could breathe freely. Later that evening, Olivia and Ethan sat on the terrace of his penthouse, sharing a bottle of champagne and watching the sun set over Manhattan. The shareholders' meeting had ended with record approval ratings for Ethan's leadership, and the business press was calling Olivia's speech one of the most romantic moments in corporate history. "So," Ethan said, refilling their champagne flutes. "That was quite a day." "I'm sorry," Olivia said for the 100th time. "I know I complicated everything by going off script like that." Ethan set down his glass and turned to face her fully. "Olivia, you didn't go off script. You threw out the script entirely and wrote something better. Better? Better, because it was true." Ethan took her hand, his thumb brushing over her engagement ring, the real one he'd given her just hours after the shareholders' meeting. "Olivia, what we had before today was beautiful, but it was still partly performance. What we have now is completely real." Olivia looked down at the stunning diamond on her finger, still not quite believing it was real. "Are you sure? Because this is all happening so fast, and I know your family has expectations." Ethan silenced her with a gentle kiss. "Olivia, my family loves you because you're perfect for me. The press loves you because you're genuine in a world full of fake people. And I love you because you see the real me and love me anyway, even though I'm not from your world, especially because you're not from my world. You keep me grounded, Olivia. You remind me that there's more to life than business deals and social obligations." Ethan's smile was soft and genuine. "Besides, I think you underestimate how well you fit into my world. Did you see how the shareholders responded to you today? You commanded that room like you were born to it." Olivia laughed, feeling giddy with happiness and champagne. "I was terrified the entire time. You were magnificent. And you were mine." Ethan's voice grew husky. "Completely, genuinely mine." He stood and held out his hand. "Dance with me, Olivia Grant. Our first dance as a really engaged couple." Olivia accepted his hand, letting him pull her into his arms as soft music drifted from the apartment's sound system. They swayed together under the darkening sky, surrounded by twinkling city lights. "Ethan," Olivia said, "what happens now? I mean, with the engagement party your mother's planning and the wedding and—" Ethan spun her gently, then pulled her close again. "Now we get to do something we've never done before." "What's that?" Ethan's smile was radiant. "We get to plan our real future together." As they danced on the terrace high above Manhattan, Olivia realized that sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin with a case of mistaken identity. Sometimes you have to pretend to be someone else's perfect match before you discover that you actually are. And sometimes, when you're brave enough to tell the truth in front of 500 people, you get everything you never dared to dream of. 3 months later, Eleanor Sterling threw the engagement party of the century, complete with 200 guests, a full orchestra, and enough flowers to stock a small florist shop. Olivia's parents flew in from Chicago, instantly charmed by Ethan, and welcomed into the Sterling family with open arms. 6 months after that, Olivia and Ethan were married in a ceremony that made the front page of every society magazine in the country. Olivia's marketing consulting firm, launched with Ethan's enthusiastic support and completely separate from Sterling Enterprises, had become one of the most sought-after agencies in New York. And 1 year after their wedding, when Olivia discovered she was pregnant with their first child, she realized that the best love stories aren't the ones that go according to plan. They're the ones that begin with grabbing the wrong arm and end up changing everything. As for Camille Laurent, she eventually found her own happiness with a tech entrepreneur in Silicon Valley, though she still occasionally sent Olivia and Ethan wedding anniversary cards with oddly sincere congratulations, because sometimes even the antagonists get their happy endings. And Olivia Grant Sterling, successful businesswoman, devoted wife, and the woman who had accidentally grabbed the wrong arm, lived happily, chaotically, and completely authentically ever after. The end.